anglers. You are tuning into the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network, kayak fishing's best network of shows with great hosts covering all things kayak fishing, bringing you special guests covering topics such as inshore fishing, river trips, gear reviews, angler profiles, tournament news, and more. Sit back, relax. Let's do
Chasing the 20s is proudly partnered with these great companies. Railblazer. Think outside the box. Go to railblazer.com for all your kayak and boating needs. Achigan Brand, the official brand of smallmouth bass. Go to achiganbrand.com and check out all their apparel. Ken's Jigs. Check out Ken's Jigs on Facebook or call 570-850-9153. Kayak Cushion. It's a must for them long days on the water. Go to kayakcushion.com for all your comfort needs. Nikko Baits, the next generation of soft baits. Go to nikkobaits.com and check out all their products. Little Miami Outfitters Elite Rods. Go to littlemiamioutfitters.com and check out all their cool rods. Thanks for joining us tonight, and let's get into the show.
Alrighty. Welcome back.
What's up? Welcome
Not
back,
much.
guys.
Yeah, going live. How's it going, Carlo?
Oh man, I'm still going insane, man. I just need to get out on the water. It's like every weekend it's blowing 50 mile an hour.
I hear you.
know? And then
Yep.
yesterday we had that show in Red Lion, and me and Sean were there, and we were looking on Facebook and seeing all our friends catching smallmouth, and we're just like, this is crazy, you know. But
Yeah.
we're back, and I'm hoping to get back on the water maybe next weekend if the weather permits it. I do have my new kayak all rigged out, and I'm ready to get out there and catch some, man.
Yeah, you gotta get slime that boat, man.
I know. I got to get the juju. I
That's
did have
right.
it out. I did have it out last Saturday or Sunday. I forget which day it was. I think it was Saturday last weekend. I had it out on Lake Redmond, and I was only out for like an hour, and it was blowing. I was just in a little cove because it was blowing so hard. I was out and, just testing out the steering and stuff like that, and didn't really get to do much fishing, but we got on the water with it to test things, so that was cool.
Yeah, getting used to that eagle eye.
Yeah, seeing a couple fish swimming around. What's going to be the hardest thing is the foot steering to get used to, because I'm not used to that yet. So
Okay.
I bought the oh man, I can't remember the name of it. But anyhow, I bought the really good foot steering with the ball bearings in them and stuff. I can't remember the name of it right now.
Yeah, I know which ones you mean. They definitely looked cool looking at them at the show yesterday. I was pretty stoked for you that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to work out really well for you.
Yeah. When we get Jake in here, I'm sure he remembers the name, because I think I bought the set that he was waiting for at Blue Mountain Outfitters. So guys, welcome to Chasing the 20 Inchers, Susquehanna River Smallmouth Podcast. You know what we do every week. We're going to start off with the river levels. The river levels are brought to you by Railblazer, so check them out at railblazer.com. We're going to start off with Harrisburg. Harrisburg is sitting at 5.52 feet, and it looks like it's kind of on a down spiral. Go to the next one, the West Branch, Lewisburg, PA. Sitting at 4.92. Also looks like they're on a downward spiral, which the river was up pretty high because of all that ice and stuff that melted. And then we had a lot of rain on top of that. The next one is Marietta, sitting at 38.14 feet. Also on the down spiral.
All
And then
coming
we
back to
got,
normal, it looks like. Yeah.
yeah, everything's coming back to normal. And then we got Towanda, the North Branch, sitting at 4.23. And that seems pretty high. That's not their normal. But
Okay.
I know I was watching their levels last year because I fished the Kayak Adventure Series, and they're normally around 1 or 2 foot. That's their normal, I think, up there. But for that tournament, it wasn't. I mean, we had that big hurricane come through. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I wanted, as usual, we also want to cover some of the hero shots that that you guys submitted. So we'll run through those real quick. Up first this week, we have Scott Wallach. So I'll bring his picture on. There we go. Not a bad fish there. It looks like he's fishing from shore, but man, I'd like to catch some of them.
He messaged me. Well, he made a comment. He said he's getting his boat worked on, so he's fishing from the bank until that's finished.
Well, if
Nice
you can
fish
pull in
spot.
fish like that from the bank, that's pretty cool. So
Yeah, that's nice fish.
all right. Up next, we have Scotty Hepner. Another nice looking smallie there. Got a big belly on him. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Then our buddy Mickey had a tank earlier this week. Made me super jealous. I was like, my goodness, that he seems to find those monster fish. But yeah, nice fish, Mickey.
Nice fish.
Another buddy of ours, Larry Okonski, with another nice smallie.
Check out the lipstick on that fish.
Yeah, Larry was saying he put on his lipstick just for today, or just for that day. So glad to see Larry out on the water and catching some. JP Poole also had this guy, pretty nice looking fish there.
Oh yeah,
definitely some. You guys are putting up some numbers, and our guest tonight, Jake Housman, sent this one in. So
great photo, Jake.
Can't wait to hear about that. Thanks for that. We have two Rocky Rivers Guide service sent this picture in. So it looks like they're on fish as well. So that's good to see. And last but not least, we have Jake Fromm, buddy who was hanging out with us at the show yesterday. Jake has a nice smallie there. So as always, guys, thank you so much for submitting your fish pictures so we can share them with everybody and keep them coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. So definitely appreciate that, and glad to see you all, getting on the fish. That gives me hope for when we get out that we'll be finding them as well. So
yes, sir. Hope so. Well, without further ado, you want to bring Jake in, Sean? Yeah. And everybody, please welcome Jake Housman to the show.
How's it going, guys?
How you doing, Jake?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Loud and clear.
Good. I'm pumped up. It's springtime.
Woohoo! Finally, right?
It's awesome.
This weather today, this wind is crazy. You go outside and it's like warm wind instead of cold wind for once.
Yeah, my wife said that exact same thing. She's like, it's mild. It looks like it should be really cold, but it's a warm breeze. So,
and
well,
Carl,
Jake,
the wizard foot control steering. That's what you were trying to.
That's it. Yep, that's it. So before we get into it, why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you're from? Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
My name is Jake. I live in Harrisburg here in Pennsylvania, 5 minutes from the river, right in my backyard. I got into kayak fishing about 10 years ago and really kind of took it seriously 3 or 4 years ago, and I've spent probably 2 to 3, 4 days a week on the river ever since then. And this has basically become my life and my hobbies and my addiction. And that's what led me here today.
Nice. And what did you start out kayak fishing, or did you start from the bank, or?
So I actually started out as a kid fishing a private lake, and we would always pan fish and bass fish. I wasn't targeting bass, whatever would bite, we would catch and cook it up and eat it. And my family kind of got me to that. And when I turned 16, got my own car, I started experimenting more with trout fishing. And I was a really big trout guy for 5 or 6 years. And when I was in high school, as a senior in high school, my best friend, he was like, dude, you got to get a kayak, come out on the Susquehanna River with me. I had never been out there before. And I was like, okay. So I got this, it went crazy from there. I mean, it was like I quickly realized that was my new favorite kind of fishing.
Yeah. I think
Awesome.
that happened to all of us.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's. I was going to say that story sounds familiar.
Yeah. Well, so we see, you know, you've got a lot of checks on the wall over there. Let's talk about some of your success with kayak fishing. I see you got some no limit power hour. Is that
Yeah.
Hobie? Oh, that's Ike.
Yeah,
Ike tournaments. That was last year, right?
yeah, almost everything you see behind me is from last year, and one of them's from the year before. I've only been
Okay.
tournament fishing for, I think, 2.5 years now. I've only
Okay.
fished, I think, 6 tournaments in my life. I wanted to make sure that I was actually ready to fish them. I knew I was a good fisherman, but I didn't know how I would handle it, when you're fishing them, how you control your emotions and everything. So I just wanted to make sure that I was completely ready before I dove head into it. And I'm glad I did that. My first tournament ever, I came in 8th place out of 153 people. And that was kind of like proof in the pudding that I had done enough of my homework that I think I can compete against these guys. Then it all spiraled downhill from there. My second tournament ever was the Bassmaster tournament 2 years ago, and my motor broke 30 minutes into the day, and I was like 2-3 miles downstream, and pretty much called it quits then, and had to walk up the river the rest of the day.
Oh,
No. And that's where you when you realized like waiting the waiting part of it, because I see you do a lot of waiting, don't you?
In the summertime, yeah, a lot of my pictures I actually hop out of my kayak to get a nice picture.
Oh, okay.
I don't do as much waiting as you think. In the fall last year, I did though. I did a lot of waiting.
Okay. Okay. So we see your photos that you send us, and they're pretty high quality, nice photos. Like, what's your setup for that? Like you say, you get out of your kayak to take your photos
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Do you
So
use a Go? Is that a GoPro or what?
No, I have a Yak Attack like phone mount holder mounted on my kayak, and it's really nice. It can like pivot left and right. So I just motor up onto a rock, hop out, and stand 2 feet away from the camera and take a picture. The reason the pictures look so nice is because I edit them.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes you can't really tell that, but I mean, there's a difference between my picture and most people's pictures that are just off their camera.
Yeah.
definitely.
It looks like you use a lot of dehaze for the
Yep.
clouds and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes I do that. You're calling me out on my little.
Well, I've been a photographer for about close to 20 years now, so I know all the little tricks.
Might have to have you take some pictures of fish with me.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, because I offered my services when I first started kayak fishing to Jake Housman, and just to follow him around and take some photos of him with my long lens and stuff like that. And he was just like, "Oh, nobody ever really asked me to do that." I guess he wasn't sure how it was going to work, but yeah, we could get together and do that. Definitely, that'd be so cool.
You'd be wasting your time with Jake Housman. That guy doesn't catch.
Oh, shots fired.
Oh no, I hope he's not watching right now.
He likes to call me the fake Jake.
Yeah. Well, we did ask him to come on the show this week, but he had to work, so
Okay,
we went with Jake number 2.
that's fine. I'll be okay being called that. That's fine.
Yeah, you're good. We're just joking around.
Jake must be a good kayak fishing name, because I know probably 4 off the top of my head. Jakes that kayak fish. So
And the last names are so close. It's crazy.
yeah, they're not far. Definitely.
You wouldn't believe how many times that people get me mixed up with him and him mixed with me. I mean, I was buying something on Marketplace one time, and the guy was like, "Oh, I love your YouTube videos," and I just kind of went along with it because I knew I'd been on a few podcasts before. I was like, maybe he's talking about that. He's like, "You're so good. I learned so much from your YouTube videos and everything." He's like, I'll give you like $50 off what you're buying just because I know who you are. And I met up with the guy after we agreed on a price, and I was like, "Hey, I'm not the guy you're looking for, but I'm friends with him."
Well, that worked
That's
out.
cool. Yeah. Yeah, Sean and I were both going to fish the Ike tournament last year, but it happened to fall on the same day as our Kayak Anglers of Central PA championship. So
Okay.
we
I know.
we had that big team championship.
Yeah, you couldn't use the motor for yours, but you could for the Ike, and that would probably be a little difficult to compete then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we only needed 2 fish apiece because we were on a 5-man team, so it was a lot easier without a motor to do that.
Yeah, you guys won that, right? You
Yeah. Yep.
nice.
Right.
You're the
Let me
trophy
show you.
holder.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, boy.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. We got the team. That's our second year in a row, and my first year doing it, but they won it last year too.
Is that
Last year was
on the river?
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
what we call it our standard stretch, like Sunbury to City Island, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that Ike tournament? Like what was your strategy going into it? I can't remember what the weather was like that day, Sean. It was a little chilly, I think, wasn't it?
It was a cold front. Yeah, that was the first time of the year that I had to wear waders because I knew I was going to be out in the water a little. I wore
Yeah.
waders to go fishing. That day I had 98.5 inches. I had I think I had 95 or 94.5 inches in the first 45 minutes of the tournament.
Wow.
The only thing I threw that day was a mag draft. That's the only thing I threw in. I was really struggling to fish the prior 2 or 3 weeks. It was really low, if you guys remember, just incredibly low.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like the fall feeding frenzy had little snippets that it was maybe starting, but it was like you would go out and only catch a few fish. And I wasn't even able to catch 5 good fish going out. So I was like, I'm not going to sign up for this unless I can figure something out. And I took the day off of work before that. And I figured something out at a different boat ramp. And I didn't fish that boat ramp the tournament day because I had already leaned on those fish pretty good. And yeah, and I figured something out with the mag draft, just throwing it up onto the shallow flats and the push water
Yeah.
ledge systems, and that I really took advantage of that. A lot of the fish I caught were literally sitting in like 6 inches of water.
Wow. Now, what's your setup on your mag draft rod? Like, what do you use?
I throw it on. It's probably a little overkill than what most people throw it on, and I just feel like it's because I'm a kayak fisherman. I need stronger rods because when you set the hook on a kayak, you move towards the fish. So I feel like something to compensate for that, either less line stretch or a stronger rod or a faster tip. So I use a 7.5 heavy Shimano Zodius rod, and I actually throw that on 17-pound fluorocarbon.
Okay.
That's like a frog rod, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's not as stiff as a frog rod. I don't think. I don't know what they would consider that.
Maybe a big swim bait rod or
almost, yeah, just halfway there. But yeah, it seems to work really good. That longer rod, a lot of people throw it on like on 7-foot twos, and I feel like that 7.6 gives me the extra leverage that I can really get that hook and swing it in there because I don't actually use the regular mag draft. I use the mag draft freestyle. I actually have
with the feather treble.
No, not with the feather treble. So the way I rig it up is a little bit different than most people. Kind of giving some juice away here.
I was going to say, don't give any juice away. You don't want to, but we'll definitely appreciate anything you want to volunteer.
I throw it on a 7-foot Gamakatsu hook. They come in 3/8 or 1/4 ounce, which that's standard. But what people don't do is there's a spring lock on this. And when you screw that mag draft into the spring lock, you get one bite, it'll pull it right out. So what I do is I upgrade it to an XL spring lock.
Okay.
And what that does is it covers the whole head of this mag draft, so it will never pull out from any fish. I mean, you can pull it out if you really try to, but if you guys have thrown mag drafts, they don't last that many fish. If you're lucky, you can get 20 fish out of one, but if you're unlucky, it could be 3 fish. So you can see here, you can't see the hook. It's weedless. So when they bite down, I need to pull as hard as I can.
Gotcha.
You
Yeah,
said
because you're
that's
going through a lot of plastic there.
Yeah.
is that you said a 7/0?
Yeah. 7/0.
Wow, so that hook point's pretty far up on that mag draft, right?
Yeah. There's just enough room. You can see here, there's just enough of a gap that when they set
Yeah.
the hook, they can get it in their mouth, but you really have to pull.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I was thinking of what's the mag draft with the feather on it? That's
That's
the
like the mag draft
slow
or something. I don't know what
something.
it's called.
Mag slow. Mag
Mag
slow.
slow.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Nice.
really like this freestyle version with the weight on it because if you've ever thrown the regular mag draft, it's like a one speed retrieve type of bait. If you reel it too slow, it like kind of just dives on you. If you reel it too fast, it rolls to its side. But when you have this weight on the bottom, you can slow drag it on the bottom, you can burn it, you can do a lot more with it. It's kind of like a do-all bait then, and you don't have to have that one speed retrieve. And most times of the year, I am throwing this freestyle version. The only time that I like the regular mag draft with the treble hook is when fish are actively spawning. When they're not that I'm purposely throwing it onto beds, but when you reel a mag draft over a bed and there's a fish sitting on it, you want it to go as slow as it can because those fish aren't trying to eat it. They're just going to nip the edge of something and they're going to swim off the bed and they're going to drop it. So if you can catch the edge of their face with a treble hook when they go to nip at it, that's going to be key.
Yeah. And another big thing about that freestyle, the way you fish it is grass. You can get through grass easily with that.
Yeah, definitely. And when that floating grass is coming down, it's not as bad. I mean, we all know there's no way to avoid that floating grass, but
Yeah,
no treble hook sticking out helps a lot more.
absolutely.
But yeah, that tournament, I had 94.5 inches in the first like 45 minutes. I only got 7 bites that day, and I think I only landed 6 fish.
Wow.
Wow.
94.5 inches, I thought maybe I had enough to win, and I did looking at it at the end of the day, but I didn't know that during the day. I actually fished 2 different boat ramps that day. I had the 94.5. I went back to my truck, and I launched at another boat ramp, and I found my personal best smallmouth that day at the second boat ramp. I caught the 21.5, 540, big
Nice.
mama of a smallmouth. And 2 casts before that, I had lost one that was almost the same size. It was crazy.
Wow.
Now was
So,
that the
so if you
big-
had that 90 inches pretty early, then the rest of the day was a little slower.
Very slow. Yeah, I couldn't get bites, or I would get follows, or they would bite it and miss it. It was slow, and that's kind of what I had been dealing with like the last 2 weeks on the river. And I really wasn't going to fish that tournament unless I found something on the day before, and I did. I got really lucky.
That's awesome. Did that give you big bass, that 21.5? Or
Oh yeah, yeah. There was 2 other guys I think who caught 20 3/4, and I also caught a 20 3/4, 20.5 or 20 3/4 that day.
Wow.
sweet. That's a nice payday, and I'm sure you got a lot of I remember fishing the Ike tournament, and he gives a lot of sponsors stuff away too.
Yeah, they have a lot of sponsor prizes. I got a lot of stuff from Yak Attack. I decked out my kayak with, and a ton of other stuff. So I was really happy with that.
Nice. Nice. And then last year I seen you at the awards at the No Limit Power Hour, and you pretty much cleaned up there too.
Yeah, I'd like to tell people that I won that tournament without winning it.
Yeah, that's
I guess-
basically what you did.
I've brought home the most amount of prizes, so I guess I could say I won it. But I don't like to go out and tell people that. So yeah, that was a really fun day. Again, those fall fishing tournaments, when those fish are stacked up, if you don't know where they're at already, and then you don't have like a solid game plan, it's not going to work well for you. And a lot of
Yeah.
people realize that they didn't go out the week before or the day before and scout and look for fish. And when you're fishing summertime and they're all over those grass islands, there's like one big fish on every 5th grass island. Well, all those big fish are now in one spot. So now they're not spread out. You have to cover 5 times as much water to find them. And when you do find them, there's a lot of them. So what I did the day before and the week before was I went out looking, and I knew I was going to throw a glide bait. I was either going to get skunked or catch a lot of fish, or I was going for the home run on that tournament, and because I knew all it takes is one big bite for to win $1,000. So I wasn't going. My goal wasn't to catch the most amount of inches, and that's kind of what I had determined going into it. But I have to give a little backstory with that tournament. My motor, my Torpedo, got water intrusion in it, and it broke 4 days before the tournament, which is a common theme for me. It's now happened two times.
Oh man.
So this off season, I actually found Steve Baker. He was selling 2 Torpedoes, and I bought them both. And now I have 3 Torpedoes.
Now you got some backup.
Some insurance.
Yeah. So I was scattering around, asking every friend possible if I could borrow their kayak or borrow their motor, because not only did my motor break, my kayak had a nice leak in it because I drug it across cement one day. And yeah, I'm not too smart with some things here, but it had a leak in it. So I was looking for a kayak and looking for a motor to use. And my good friend, Brandon Sandy, he came to the rescue. I'm not sure if you know him. He's a guide here on the Susquehanna River. He is a very nice guy. He said, yeah, you can use my motor. You can use my kayak. And it was the first time I had ever used it. It was a bonafide, what is it, RBR or something like that. I don't know. It was, you know what it was? It was Mickey's old kayak.
Oh, gotcha.
And he sold it to Brandon, and then I used it.
Okay.
That had good juju on it.
That was the same kayak, I think, that Mickey used to do really well in the Bassmaster tournament, if I'm right.
Yep.
So
the blue one.
Yeah,
the
that
blue
kayak,
one, right?
blue. Yeah, that kayak has some good smallmouth juice on it now.
Yeah, it does.
I'll say.
Yeah, so that tournament, I caught every single fish on a glide bait. I just rotated between 2 or 3 glide baits, and honestly, I only fished like 4 different spots the entire day because I knew the fish were there and they were stacked up. And I fished 2 different boat ramps. I went to one boat ramp and I had 3 or 4 fish over 17 inches. And then I drove like 30 minutes to get to the next one. Went out and I didn't catch a single fish. So you were talking about me waiting. I didn't catch a single fish in that kayak that day.
Wow.
Okay.
I got out of my kayak and I stood in the places and I casted into them where they were. Because quite frankly, I didn't really feel too comfortable in that kayak.
Yeah.
It
It's
was
a little low.
It was a new kayak that I had never been in, and it was I'm a Torpedo guy. I run the 1103, and he had a Newport 180 Pro, and they're just completely different. I don't know how to describe it. It's like the power, and then when you put the throttle forward, it didn't accelerate right away. There was like a half-second delay, and the steering was kind of all seized up. So like I really just didn't feel that safe. That was half the reason, but I was just thankful that I had a kayak with a motor that I could get from spot A to spot B.
Yeah.
And took full advantage of it. So the day before the tournament, I had found a really, really nice pot of fish, and I'm talking they were all 17 inches. I think I leaned into like 6 of them in one spot, and then I took the hooks off, and I had a bunch more just chase it. It was so fun to watch. I had 2 fish in one cast. There was like 2 18s on at the same time. So I was like, oh my goodness, if they're biting like this tomorrow, I'm going to win this tournament flat out in one spot. And that was actually the last spot that I was planning on going to. I was going to spend about half my day there. And I get there, and there's 2 old guys with minnow buckets.
Oh, we heard this story before.
Yes.
That happened to somebody else that we know.
Really?
Yeah.
Those dang live bait guys, man. I'll tell you what. So I was sweet talked them, and I was like, hey, I'm doing really well in this tournament. This is a spot that I found yesterday, and I was planning on spending half my day here. Is there any way I could just hop in with you guys? And I didn't catch a single fish in that spot.
Wow.
I asked them, I said, how many fish did you guys catch? They're like, oh, we're up to like 25 fish now.
Oh man.
They were just reeling them in left and right, and they were right beside me. And once a fish sees live bait, they're not going to eat something fake. They get smart.
Yep.
Yeah.
When they know it's just being dropped right in front of them, that's what they're going to look for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You compete with a minnow.
Yeah. Yep.
I really can't.
So I'm pretty new to swim baits. I was curious, like what, just how you use them. Like I guess it's a slow sink, and you know, it's just that, you know, round the clock retrieve, that kind of thing, or do you jerk it? Or?
Each day is kind of different with these fish. They're really temperamental. I mean, you guys know that. One day you'll go out and smack them, and the next day you'll get skunked. They can humble you in a second. And so you have to really play with their temperament. And most times I am chopping it very fast.
Okay.
I found out that smallmouth on this river particularly, they just always want that glide bait moving. If you pause it, they'll sit there and look at it, and a lot of times they won't hit it. Largemouth are different. I've paused it on largemouth, and they've come up and just smashed it. But smallmouth, they'll follow it back to your kayak, and you can sit there and do a figure 8 in the water or just twitch it, and so it goes left and right beside your kayak, and they don't even know that you're there. They're so dialed in on that glide bait. I have some crazy, I wish I had a GoPro when I was recording. I've had some things happen that no one would even believe. It's not even funny. I had a 20-incher follow my glide bait in, and it was just sitting there beside my kayak. I was twitching it for like 20 seconds, and it was trying to eat it, and it kept missing. And then it finally grabbed a hold of it, and I set the hook, and I hooked this thing in the butt, like up under the belly in the butt. So I caught a 20-incher by snagging it with the glide bait by accident.
Jeez.
I've had them where I catch one, and there's 4 or 5 the same size or bigger trying to take it out of its mouth. I mean, a lot of people struggle with it, but once you learn it, it's honestly so fun and rewarding.
It's definitely something I'm going to be trying a little bit more this year. I was playing with one at Redmond in the winter and caught 2 largemouth with it. So that converted me, made me a believer. So I just haven't thrown it on the river yet, but I'm excited to give it a try.
Which glide bait were you using?
I was using a Temu $8 glide bait, and
my goodness,
it was working great. I'm like, I don't know that I'm going to keep using that $8 one. I'm going to keep trying it because I won't cry if I lose it,
That's the thing. Yeah. The money you have to spend to get into it with the big and nice glide baits it's ridiculous. I mean, I have a bad addiction of buying them. I have a giant box full of them.
I'm always afraid that a muskie's going to come and bite it off.
Well, you see some pictures of muskie. It happens. It does happen. I think I lost 1 or 2 baits last year to it. And those baits were both over $100 a piece.
Oh, I'd cry.
I would cry too.
So cool. They're like, how do you not feel bad about losing that bait? It's like, well, once you have 30 of them, it doesn't feel as bad losing one of them.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell my wife that strategy. I wonder if that would go over well.
I just have to make sure my wife never figures out about that strategy.
Well, hopefully she's not watching the show.
No, she's not.
So going back to the power hour, did you have more than $1,000 fish?
Yes. Yeah, I had the first hour and I had the last hour.
Oh, nice.
I thought that I was going to get more hours. I thought I would have won 3 or 4 hours. It was my best day ever for best 5 fish. My best 5 fish were 99.5 inches.
Wow.
Almost a century belt. That's crazy.
I know. I've never gotten it before. I'm hoping to.
Did you fish the Bassmaster last year?
I did. I came in 28th. I guess it was 224 people.
After day 1, were you in first place?
No, I was in like 50th. I made a comeback.
Oh, okay. That must have been somebody else I thought was them thinking of, because they had like 98 inches on the first day.
That was Russ Snyder's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a humor.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. So you wound up getting $2,000 and some prizes, right?
For that tournament, for the
power hour.
The power hour. Yeah. I got, what was it? So I won the kayak. That was
you won the kayak too.
I won the Native Slayer 12.5 kayak, which I sold right away because that thing's like 185 pounds with nothing.
Oh, wow.
So you won the kayak with biggest bass of the tournament.
Yeah.
Okay.
One big bass, and then I won 2 of the hours, and then there are some really good sponsors there. I won a $500 Yak Attack gift card. I won a bunch of other gift cards. Yeah, it actually turned out to be, I think, close to like $6,000 worth of stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I know the guy that won it. He won it the year before too. He's two or three times in a row he's won that.
Yeah,
tournament.
that's Logan. Logan is a hammer.
Yeah. And
If
he
I'm
was fishing
if I'm fishing a tournament with him, and I'm just hoping for second place most of the time.
Yeah, and he was using a micro jig.
Yeah, he must know where there's a lot of smaller fish grouped up in the fall, because when he won it a year or two before, it was the exact same time of the year.
We were just talking yesterday at the show about micro jigs, and also about like the Gizmo, how that, that's won tournaments before, and those little baits you don't think of. Everybody's throwing big mag drafts and glides and everything, and then sometimes the tiny ones are the ones that do it too. It's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I throw big baits all the time, but if you want to talk about the Gizmo, I can tell you a lot about the Gizmo. That's a really fun bait to throw.
Well, before you do that, we're going to have a little 30-second commercial, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit Gizmo talk.
Okay.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're sitting here with Jake Housman, and right before the break, I heard the word gizmo, so we're going to get into that a little bit. So why don't you go ahead, Jake, and give us a little juice on the gizmo.
The Gizmo is probably my number one confidence bait if I know where a fish is. It's not a good searching bait. You don't cast it and wind it. You just let it sit there and maybe twitch it once or twice. So in the summertime, when the river is nice and low and you look up 100 yards above you and you see a big fish blow up on the edge of a grass island, you know that fish is there. I'm throwing the Gizmo, and 9 times out of 10, it will bite it. When they bite that Gizmo, it's not like they just nip it. They inhale it. I mean, it goes the whole way back their throat. And I've also noticed that most of the big fish, when they eat that, they don't jump. They just run. They just take it and run, because I don't know if it's because they think it's real and it's not a reaction strike. It's like they're looking at it as if they actually want to eat it, because they can get a real good look at it before they do eat it.
Now, your setup for throwing that, like, do you always have that on, like, tied on a certain rod in the summertime, and just for that instance, that when that happens?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I always have it in the front of my kayak, like, ready. It's not hooked up to my reel or anything like that. I mean, it's ready to go. I've experimented around with a bunch of rods. I've tried it on light action 7-foot rods, and it just didn't work well. So then I bought a 7.6 medium light X Pride, thinking that could throw it, and that couldn't throw it. And I still used it. It was working well, but I just can't throw it. A lot of people have the same issue as me.
It's hard to throw a long way. Yeah.
So over this off season, I had a guy on Facebook named Keith Reinold. He contacted me. He said, "Hey, I'm a bait maker. He's a rod maker, somewhere up near Sunbury area up there." And he says, "I would like to make you a rod." He said, "As long as you can help spread the word of my business." So this is my attempt to do that. I am actually meeting with him tomorrow for the second time. I challenged him to make a gizmo rod for me, and he said it was the hardest thing he's ever done, because he's never heard of the bait. He's never thrown a lure that light. He went down to a rod making convention down south a few weeks ago, and he was talking to friends with about this rod, and they're like, "Dude, you just need to throw that on a fly rod." I'm like, "I'm not doing that. I'm not throwing it on fly rod."
Yeah.
Not happening. So he has this blank, which I did get to test, and I get to throw the bait in a parking lot somewhere. If that makes it made me feel a little better He was designing it for me. He put my name on the rod and everything. It's a perfect blank for this rod. And
Nice.
he makes really high-end, nice, sensitive, lightweight, durable rods. I can cast that thing twice as far as my other rod.
Wow.
It's
Oh,
it's like in between a light and a medium light. Like it is a very light rod, and it's 7'6". I believe it's like an extra fast taper.
Okay.
well, now what pound line are you throwing with the Gizmo?
I throw it straight on 10-pound. What is it called? Cast braid. Again, that's another thing that my buddy Brandon Sandy he got me into. It's a really thin diameter braid. It's probably half the diameter of normal braid, so you can cast lures twice as far with it, and it's almost just as strong.
I've never heard of it.
Cast braid. I will definitely check that out. We can throw a link to it in the show notes for those of you
definitely
interested.
check that out. Very smooth, very, very, very light braid.
Huh. Cool.
Awesome.
That's intriguing to me, because I've tried to cast that thing many a times, and I'm like, the fish is probably 60 feet away, and I'm casting like 40. So,
Yeah, like I said, it's not a good search bait, but if you know a fish is there and you see it swirling on bait, or you just, there's those big fish spots where you just know there's always a big fish here, there's always a big fish there. I'm throwing the Gizmo in there before I throw anything else, because it's really hard to fish on that bait. You just loosen the drag. It's a really light wire hook. You just loosen the drag and let it run. And it usually takes me 2 or 3 minutes to get a big 19, 20-inch fish in on that bait.
My experience has been too that they really just swallow it. Like it's usually way down there.
Yeah, it's unlike any other bait. Like they don't really choke baits the way they choke that thing for whatever reason.
huh. Now, when you cast it out there, are you just letting it sit?
Pretty much, yeah. I'll just give it a tiny little twitch. Like imagine a little water spider on top of the water. How many times have you seen them? And in the little eddies behind the grass islands, they just kind of like sit there and they move a little bit, but they just kind of sit there and maybe occasionally they'll dart around. That's what I'm doing with it. And I don't give more than like 5 to 10 seconds. If that fish isn't going for it as soon as it hits the water, there is no fish there.
Yeah. Huh. That's wild. Now, going back to, I want to go back because I wanted to ask you a question about the freestyle mag draft.
Sure.
You said you were throwing that on 17-pound fluorocarbon?
Sure, yes.
Are you using like a 7-1 or 8-1 speed reel?
Yeah, I like to use 8-speed reels for almost everything on this river nowadays. It's just easier. I can always slow down my reel, but if I'm throwing a 6-speed, I can't speed it up sometimes. Like when the river's high, it's coming down 5 miles an hour, and I'm going up at 2 miles an hour. You add them together, that's 7 miles an hour. You have to just reel to keep up with the current. So I'm using 8s for almost everything.
Okay.
Talking about the mag draft, I actually caught my first smallmouth of the year on a mag draft this morning before the hurricane wind came in.
Wow.
It
just
was
slow rolling it.
I was reeling it at a normal speed. I mean, I was out yesterday. I was out yesterday and they were eating the swim bait, like a 3-4 inch swim bait, really, really well. They were choking it. So I'm like, why not just throw a bigger swim bait? And I tested it out. Now, my second cast, I caught an 18-incher with it. And then I threw it for the next hour and I had nothing. So it might be a little bit early for that to really start popping off. I don't know if I was really around fish. They're not really pulled up on the banks as much right now, but
that's coming.
It's coming. It is right around the corner.
Yep. Did you get the water temperature?
Yeah, it was 46.5.
Okay. They should start chasing a little bit right now, I would think.
Yeah, we caught about 50 fish yesterday, and they were on jerk baits, swim baits, crank baits. I mean, we didn't drag bottom at all.
Nice.
How deep of water are you fishing? Were they pretty deep, or were they?
For the Susky, relatively deep, 6 to 8 feet of water.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. yesterday seemed like it was a good day to fish. A lot of people were catching.
Oh, yeah.
We were hating life, sitting at the show, looking on Facebook and seeing everybody out catching fish. I was like, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah,
that I talked to, just they smashed them.
yeah.
Don't tell me that.
Our time's coming, Sean. Our time's coming.
Yeah.
It was really refreshing to be on a boat yesterday and not have to worry about, oh, am I going to flip the kayak in this cold water stuff? Because I don't have a dry suit, so I try to avoid the cold water. There's not too many things I'm scared of in life, and cold water is definitely one of them. The only two other things I can think of from the top of my head are maybe electricity and my check engine light on the truck going off.
Now, was this fish from yesterday?
That was from yesterday. That was my biggest fish. It was 18 3/4.
Man, that's a nice fish.
Yeah.
They're looking healthy.
Yeah, they're nice and fat. It seemed like one of those days, though, where the big fish just didn't want to eat. The river's been dropping. They were pulling off the banks, and there's still a little bit of color in that water now. So, I don't know. It just seemed like we caught a lot of 17s and a few 18s, but the 19s and 20s just didn't show up.
The 20s never show up for me.
Maybe after this podcast, I can teach you one or two things, and you can go out and catch them on something I said. That would make my day.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome.
I mean, I'm sure I had a bunch of them hooked already because I had some big ones hooked already, but I just never got them into the boat.
I'm thinking this is going to be your year. How do you like the kayak?
Well, the looks of it, I mean, I had it at the show yesterday and people were drooling over it. The looks of it it's a beautiful kayak. I didn't really get to test it that well because I said I was out at Redmond last Saturday and I wound up rescuing somebody that flipped their kayak.
Oh my gosh.
So I didn't really get a chance to really test it. I mean, it works well for rescues. So
well, if you can handle a full-size person, a 20-inch smallie shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm super excited. I haven't gotten it out on the river yet. I'm super excited about getting it out on the river and testing everything out and getting my first fish in the boat. Is that what you have now? A Power 129?
Yep, that's what I have, and I've used it. I've had it in tributaries probably 5 or 6 times, but it was in the river for the first time on Friday, and I'm still trying to dial in the setup. It's definitely a lot heavier than my last kayak, but
yeah,
the riggability on that PWR is insane. You could do so much with it.
Yeah. I should have uploaded a photo. I took a photo of it at the show. I should have uploaded a photo of it. I really enjoyed rigging that thing. It was super simple. I only had to drill one little hole for my deploy and stow my XI3. That's all it. Everything else was I used them plates that come on it.
Those plates are really nice, and if you screw something up like I did, you can get a new one for like $10 or $15.
Yep. But yeah, it's a fancy looking boat. I just hope I can break the curse this year on it.
I think you can. I don't know. One thing that's maybe holding you back is that you don't have a trolling motor mounted on the back of your kayak, so you can't. I don't know how shallow you can access.
I can get pretty shallow with the XI3. I can get that thing pretty far up that I can get into about 6 inches of water.
Oh, okay. So then that shouldn't hurt you too much there.
No, I don't think it's the boat. I mean, I get in some shallow water with it. I just think that I got a curse. I mean, I got close last year. I had a 19 and a half, I think. Which Sean was there when I caught that 19 and a half, and I was totally freaking out. I was like, it's a 20. It's a 20. And I put it on the board, and I was like, oh, it's only a 19 and a half, but 19 and a half is a good fish. And
when I'm finding some 20s, I will send you a message, and we'll go out fishing together.
That would be great, man. I would love to. I can't wait. I hope somebody's there when I do catch my 20 because I'm going to be freaking out.
I think there's a lot more 20s up north than where you guys,
Yeah. I told him that too. I said, I think, the concentration definitely is higher the further north you go.
Yeah.
I've caught a few 20s down there off the Columbia boat ramp, but I moved to Harrisburg last year, and I'm never ever going to drive south to go fishing.
Yeah. Well, the reason we fish down here so much is because it's closest. Like if we're got a couple hours, we're not going to drive an hour to go fish, and lose an hour of fishing. We're so close to
Yeah.
Wrightsville right here where that's like our main hub.
Yep.
I know last year in one of our kayak angler tournaments down there, we fished Wrightsville for the one tournament, and we were getting off the water, and there was these 3 other kayakers there that weren't fishing the tournament, and the one guy was like, "Yeah, I just caught a 22 and a quarter right there," and I was like, "Are you kidding me? I was fishing a tournament all day right here, and my biggest fish was like, I think I had a 17 and a half or something."
Wow, those 22s, I've never caught one of them. I'm waiting to see one of them.
And he
Same
caught it
here.
on a jerkbait. He caught it on a jerkbait, like in the middle, like I think it was closer towards the end of the summer. I think it was August.
Yeah.
Yeah, he caught it on a jerkbait. I don't even know how he was fishing a jerkbait with all that grass that's in there.
Yeah.
Maybe he didn't have a measuring tape either.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah,
that's true. We at the show yesterday. A guy came up and told us he caught a 24 on the Juniata, and then he was like, "Oh," and I took it home and ate it. And I was like, "Well, you lost me there, bud."
He said, "I put it on my stringer because I wanted to get it mounted,
right.
but it got off the stringer." That's what he said.
That's right. I remember, but I was like, "All right."
We were like all into his story until he said that, and we were like, "What's wrong with you, dude?"
Yeah, exactly. I was like, that was probably like a 20-year-old fish.
Come on, man.
You could just take a picture of it and probably get a duplicate mount. You don't need to kill these fish, especially something like that.
Well, I'm glad it got away.
Well,
yeah, me too.
It was really a 24. That would surprise me. Yeah.
There's only one person on this river who catches a 24, and that's Joe Raymond.
Yep.
So I think he was pulling our leg a little bit, Sean, but
might have been one of those his eyes were bigger than the fish kind of thing. So
yeah. In that case, I caught like 20 inch. So what else do we got for Jake, Sean? We wanted to get into talk a little bit about targeting bigger fish in the Susquehanna. Like,
sure.
What you I know a lot of scouting is involved in it, but like what kind of areas you look for? We already talked about what baits you use, but how you get ready for a tournament. Like, what are you out there scouting? Is it a lot of the areas where you've been before, or do you just try to find fish, or how do you do it?
Yeah, so I thought about what I wanted to say probably the whole week so far. I've been writing some things down and taking notes, so I have some things ready. I've been in other podcasts and I've just gone over throw this bait, throw that bait. Well, if you have all the baits that I catch 20 inches with, that's really cool, but what do you do with them?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more to it, and there's a lot more to it. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to start on the progression. I can start from the spring and work towards fall, because everything that I do throughout the year changes.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you got, Jake.
Sure.
We're all ears, man.
So I'm not much of a cold water fisherman. I'm glad you guys are, but I don't like cold water. So I don't usually start going out until about mid-March. And honestly, most of the time, I don't usually catch my first 20-incher until sometime in April. So we're going to be referring to, let's just call it April till mid-October here. Well, that's the time frame that I'm going to cover here. Okay. So by April, most of the fish, 50 degrees or more, they're starting to stage, run up the creeks. I am trying to put myself around big fish and try to follow the big fish wherever they go. And that's why I love having this kayak. So when these fish, when the river hits 50 degrees or even a little bit more than that, 50 to 55, they are going to run up to the creek mouths. And I'm fishing the creek mouths a lot, and there are a lot of 20-inchers that stage in them before they run up. So you don't even need certain baits. If you're around them, whatever you throw will work. You will catch 20 inchers. whatever you have the most confidence in, just throw it in these creek mouths and you'll catch them. But once they start running up these creeks, that's when I have a lot of fun. Before they spawn, I'm running up the places where the boats can't go, and I'm talking way up, like way up. I might not even start at the mouth and work my way up. I might launch 5 miles up the creek where you won't see a single kayaker the whole day. And I just continue to work my way up, and I might cover another 3 or 5 miles of creek going up.
Wow. So they really go up that far. That's
They
interesting.
go way up. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how far they go, but I know they at least go 8 or 9 miles because I catch the crap out of them up there. And you go back in summer and fall and they're not in there anymore. They've already made it back to the river.
Mhm.
So
Interesting.
I will primarily, unless the creeks are dirty, if it's clean or just slightly stained, I'm throwing that mag draft or the glide bait all the time. I don't care if I catch 2 fish the whole day, 4 fish the whole day. I would much rather catch 2 20s than 30 15 inchers. So I'm throwing that mag draft and I'm throwing that glide bait, and that's the only things I'm throwing up in that creek. And that will get me a lot of 20s. So last year I caught 20 20s exactly. Or no, sorry, I caught 18 20s and 2 21s.
Nice.
And I would say probably 5 of them came up in the creeks throwing big baits.
And that's pretty shallow usually, right? Or somewhat.
Yeah, usually 1 to 2 feet. You can stand up on your kayak, and sometimes you can see the fish all over the creek, and you know you're around them. But yeah, very shallow water. It's fun. It's very
Awesome.
fun.
Nice.
So when fish then start spawning in the creeks, usually I like to leave them alone. I don't like to mess with spawning fish too much. So I will go back out into the main river. And this creek fishing usually lasts pretty good from, let's just call it the second week of April till the very end of April. It's a good 2 or 3 weeks where I'm just living in the creeks. Once May hits, there's a larger concentration of fish kind of starting to spawn in the river. The water temps in the river have warmed up to the point where they can spawn. So I am doing the same thing in the main river. I'm throwing glide baits, but I like to mix in a lot of other baits. Then I'm throwing crank baits, I'm throwing chatter baits, I'm throwing, you name it, I'm throwing it. I like it's not just one bait. I'm actually starting to incorporate a little bit of top water in the middle of May, and I know a lot of people aren't doing it yet by then. So I found, and I'm not throwing your traditional top waters. I throw a giant pompadour bait. It's not actually a pompadour. It has the wings and it swims like a bird, but it's almost the size of a Coke can.
Wow.
It's huge. I think it's a musky bait.
Yeah.
But I throw that for smallmouth, and they inhale it like you wouldn't even imagine. And I know they do sell something I think called like a giant pompadour.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard of that.
But let me tell you, that works like a charm. You can catch a ton of big fish on that bait. And that's May. That's mid-May. That's late May. So once June hits, it gets pretty tough. Usually they're almost in that post-spawn funk. I've found something out in the last year or two. Right before they get into that crazy funk where all the fish are just about done spawning, I like to call it like a chill out area. Like when they're done spawning, they don't really want to eat, and they're sitting in more oxygenated, faster. Like they're sitting near faster water where they have higher oxygenation inside of it. I like to throw glide baits inside of them, and usually you can catch some real big ones doing that. But like I was saying, once June hits, fishing kind of sucks. Every June, I go up to New York. I fish the St. Lawrence River for an entire week. So the first 2 weeks of June, I'm just preparing for that trip. So I usually just spend my June up in New York doing some fishing. And when I come back at the end of June, the topwater bite is finally cooking around here. That's what I throw. If the river is clean, I'm throwing a topwater 100% of the time. If it's dirty, throwing a chatterbait, throwing a spinner bait, throwing a crankbait. But if it's clean, I'm throwing topwater. And 90% of the time, it's going to be a whopper plopper 110. I'm targeting grass islands specifically, and they're not around where you fish. There's not as many, but when you go up above Harrisburg, there are grass islands everywhere.
Yeah.
When the river is really low, those fish will sit usually on the backs of them, so the downstream side behind the current. But when the river is rising or slightly higher or muddy, they're usually sitting on the fronts of them if they're in a feeding mode. So
Going
I will,
back before you go any further, going back to you were saying about going up in the creeks when the water temp's like 50, 55,
yeah.
and you were talking about cleaner stained water, you use mag draft or whatnot. What do you use? Because I know a lot of times when we fish in April, you don't get much clean water. It's mostly dirty water because it's springtime, a lot of rain. What would you use in like a dirty water situation?
If it's honestly being honest with you here, if there's some dirtier water in the creek, I am looking to fish near creek mouths again. I go back to the creek mouths because there's usually a color difference between the
Where
creek
it mixes.
and
Yeah.
the river. I don't
Okay.
to target them up in the creeks when it's real muddy.
Okay.
They like to stack up big time when there's a color difference.
Yeah. Well, that's good information.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just didn't want to get too far and then go all the way back to April again.
No, go ahead. Cut me off if you need to. I'm going to just keep rambling.
Yeah. So we were talking June. You were talking about when throwing the whopper plopper, when the water's low, they're mostly in the back of the islands. When the water's higher, they're mostly in the front of the islands. And then go ahead.
Yep. I like to throw a black whopper plopper most of the time. If it's not working, I go to white. But for some reason, black is just my confidence color. Not that probably matters, but yeah, these grass islands really are the bulk of where I'm catching most of my 20 inchers each year. And I think one thing that a lot of people they realize, but they don't realize is timing is everything with those grass islands. So I get to the boat ramp like 30, 40 minutes before it's light out. I am putting my kayak in the water as I can just barely see 20 feet in front of me. And you got to get out there because that first hour of light is the best.
Yeah.
And the second hour of light is decent. And then once you get to that like 8 o'clock night, like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock time frame, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the bite just kind of stops. Like it's really tough in the summertime when you start to see the sun come up, when you just start to see it come over the trees, and then the bite just completely stops. You're like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
So I've found that this is probably the biggest bit of juice I'm going to give tonight. The 11:30 to 1 p.m. time frame, when a lot of people are going back to the boat ramps because they're hot and sweaty and sunburnt, that is probably the best time to catch a 20 incher. 11:30 to 1 o'clock. It's not a coincidence that I caught my personal best in that tournament at 11:32. And I've had this 11:30 thing. I've had this figured out for a long time, and it's not a coincidence. It's just I don't know what it is. The only thing I can think of, I used to think, oh, it's because the sun's coming up and shade lines are starting to form and the fish are moving around to try to get in that shade. Well, the 11:30 thing still happens when it's cloudy, so we can rule it out. So I'm thinking they're like kind of like humans. You eat breakfast at 6, 7 o'clock, and you get hungry again at 11:30, 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Now, do you target any different places at 11:30, or is it still, kind of where you're looking first light?
Yes, actually, that's a good question. I'm thinking middle of the day. You want to fish grass islands that have some shade on them. You also want to fish grass islands that have faster current on them. They will work a lot better than the stagnant ones that have no current around them. Those stagnant ones work really well the first hour or two of light, but you won't find anything on them the rest of the day. But yeah, I like to target grass islands that have either deeper water or access to shade or faster water news.
Oh.
There we go.
There we go. So you were saying about faster water, and then you cut out.
Yeah, I like to target grass islands that have access to faster water or availability to get into shade or deeper water nearby. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I've dialed it down to with that 11:30 to 1 o'clock
Yeah.
time.
That's
Interesting.
juice. That's some juice right there.
Yeah.
It is. A lot of
Bonus
people,
points for the people who stayed on for an hour to hear that.
Yeah. If anybody that is watching has any questions, go ahead and write them down in the comment while we have Jake on here. We'll
I
get
do
him in there.
general tips that I kind of thought of that might be helpful. They're kind of common sense, but I wrote them down and I was like, people just have to know that these things are really important. So paying attention to the water levels is huge. When you catch a certain fish at a certain water level and the water is a certain clarity and you catch it on a specific bait, you need to write that down. You need to take notes, have a journal. I journal almost
Yeah.
every go out, and I can almost look back and I can type in the conditions and it's like, oh yeah, this day 3 years ago, I was catching them at this water level. It's crazy how the bite is literally the same when you can go back and make it into a pattern. But yeah, definitely pay attention to water levels and be aware of your surroundings when you do catch that fish. Like, where did that fish come from? How fast is the current? How deep is it? What's
Yeah.
around? And that'll help a lot. But another thing is boat position. With us kayakers, and we have motors, we're zooming up the river. A lot of times people go too fast. They're trying to cover too much water in a small amount of time. When you're going really fast and you try to set the hook, you have to reel all the slack out of the line to set the hook. So a lot of times people will be moving too fast and they're going to lose fish because they were in a rush.
Yeah.
I think slowing down is huge. Another thing I had is just change your hooks out. That is on those whopper.
That's one thing I'm definitely guilty of. Yeah.
A lot of people are, and it's annoying and it costs a lot of money. But those topwater baits, especially the stock whopper plopper hooks, they really suck. They're really, really bad. They might be sharp for like 2 fish and then they're done. So switch them out. Whatever you need to do, switch them out. And the last thing I had for tips is just explore new spots. I try to make it a goal to explore 3 new boat ramps every year. And I've already hit 2 of those 3. So I'm way ahead of myself here. But if I wouldn't have made that goal last year, I wouldn't have found the spots that I won tournaments in.
Wow. That's a good point too.
Yeah, that is good. That was one of my goals last year, is to fish a lot of new water, and I did get a chance to fish a lot of new water last year on the river, just going north, and it helped me a lot.
Yeah, and you're going to
learning new
find
stuff. Yeah.
When you go back and you look at how good you did and the conditions, you can match it up to going back again that same time this year, and hopefully you can even figure more out.
Yeah, that's a smart thing to do. It takes a little bit of time, and a lot of us we get home and we're tired from fishing all day, but just grab a journal and just jot some stuff down that you learned throughout the day, and then do that every time you go out. It's going to help you in the long run. Like,
yep.
I mean, look at Jake's wall behind him.
Another huge tip that I have is I kind of figured this one out during that Bassmaster tournament they had last year in August. Did you guys both fish that?
I fished the MAKBF.
Okay.
It was the same days.
So you were out and you saw how many people that were out there. It was crazy.
Well, I actually fished the Juniana.
Oh.
I seen nobody.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you saw no one because it was really bad.
Yeah, I had 86 the first day, and then I had 90 on the second day.
Sounds like the exact days I had. I think I had 85 the first day and 92 on the second.
Yeah, I figured something out the second day, and it was a sneaky little thing. I'm not going to talk about it, but maybe in another show. But I found something to look for next time I'm on that river.
So since you didn't see all the people that were out there, I did during practice and during the tournament. Of the 224 people that were out there, I can make a bold prediction and say that like 170 of them had a whopper plopper in their hands the whole day.
Yep.
So
that's what I heard.
I've seen that whopper plopper the entire week, and it was working. It really was. But they were starting to get smart to it, which they almost never do on this river. And I learned a really hard lesson when I went to awards, and I found out that first and second place both were throwing wake baits for part of their day.
Oh,
And
wow.
I had never thrown a wake bait before, and that really woke me up. I was like, wow, my best bait, my whopper plopper, my juice got outfished by a wake bait. What the heck is this thing? And I need to figure out what they were using. And so I did a lot of, after August last year, I did a lot of fishing with a wake bait, and I found out a few things that are key. Um, when you're fishing a whopper plopper, sometimes the conditions just aren't right. I can't really explain it, but they'll be missing the bait, slapping at it. They'll catch one hook and miss it. You know, you've seen it. I'm sure you guys have both experienced that.
Yep.
When that happens and they're not eating it, they're just slapping at it, switch to a wake bait. And when I say a wake bait, I mean a really small wake bait. This one right here.
Oh, I got some of them. I have some of them. You can burn them too.
Yes, you can. And they cast a mile.
Yeah. What for people that ain't watching and are listening to us on Apple Podcasts or anything like that? What's the name of that bait? I forget what it is.
That's a Shimano Macbeth.
That's it.
That's I've tried probably 4 or 5 wake baits with that similar profile, and that one outfishes all the other ones 5 fish to 1 in my opinion. It's crazy. It's a big fish catcher, let me tell you. And those tiny little hooks are really strong. You can really lean on a 20-incher with that little bait and those little hooks, and it's not going to bend them out.
Now, do you put on a feather treble or no?
I don't. I've never tried that. I will probably try that this year now.
Yeah, that's something I learned this year on the river with wake baits.
Wake baits was definitely big this year for sure for us.
Yeah.
We had a couple questions in the chat too. I wanted to bring up. Brett R asked, "What water temp or daylight the bigger trigger for fish to move?"
Water temp or daylight, bigger fish to move. Definitely water temp, but stable conditions. If we're talking this time of year, once it hits 50 degrees, it's game one. We have a cold front. It's not game one anymore. You have to have that warming trend, 3-day, that 3-day warming trend that SFT talks about. It's real. Yep. You go out on that 3rd day and it's lights out and there's a cold front, you can get skunked the next day. So we need a nice warming trend. We need 50 degrees, but I don't know if daylight does as much as, I don't know. But daylight kind of plays into water temp at the same time, because if there's more hours where it's light out, it's going to be warmer because the sun is shining more minutes each day.
Right.
So they kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
Next question was from Angler's Anchor. He was asking, do you continue topwater during that 11:30 to 1 bite?
I do. And one thing I figured out, I've tried to experiment with a weightless Senko, throwing it into those big fish spots. And it does work. That works really well. So if that topwater isn't working, try that. But I do continue with the topwater. It works great.
And let's see. Thomas Sloan asked, ever use the Z-Man Hellraiser? I've used those before.
I have a few. When they came out, there was so much hype around that bait, and I never threw it. I have like 3 or 4 in my box. I think I threw it for stripers one time, and that was it.
I've caught 1 or 2 fish on them, but nothing huge. I like them because you can burn them fast, and they're heavy enough that it doesn't want to pop out of the water. You can really burn it as quick as you can burn it. So
I think they would work, but I just have a lot of baits that would play in that exact same scenario that would probably just be a better option. I'll tell you one thing I am really, really excited about this year. Have you guys heard of the new Brigade Blade?
No, what's that?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Maybe I shouldn't say anything then.
Yeah. You might not want to say
it.
What is
Battle
that?
Baits. They make a Brigade Blade. It is like a chatterbait and spinnerbait combo at the same time. This little blade here actually vibrates on the way down. So you can use this bait in cold water, and it works really well. I've caught a few on it already this year. I'm very, very excited. When everyone's throwing chatterbaits, I'm going to try this. And Good luck getting one, because the second I think they said there was like 700 people signed up on their email list
Wow.
for notifications, and once they come on stock, the guy he makes all the baits in his garage. Just a one-man operation. He has a really good website, but almost everything he sells is out of stock, unfortunately. He doesn't have enough time to make baits. But these brigade blades, he'll launch 200 or 300 of them, and they'll be sold out in 45 seconds.
Wow.
So you have to be really fast at typing your checkout information in to get one.
Yeah. Going back to I think he's talking about the Gizmo here. Brandon Sandy says the Alpha Angler Fitness spy bait rod, KS X12 PE1, 6-pound fluorocarbon leader, either a Dial Exist or Shimano Exists or Stella 2500. You can cast it 30 plus yards easily. I think he's talking about the
Gizmo. Yeah.
the Gizmo.
Yep. Yeah. If he's telling you that it can throw that far, I trust everything he says with that, because he's the guy that put me onto that braided line. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. That cast braid is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. It's not cheap.
Is it round? Is it like more of a round braid?
I don't know. So the way Brandon explained it to me is there's less strands. So when you put a braided line up to a microscope, I don't know what he told me. Maybe there's like 12 strands or something.
Yeah.
There's only 5 or 6, or there's half as many, I think. So
Okay.
there's less materials that they use. It's way more thin to the touch. You can't even tell that there's grooves in the braid. It just feels like a slick line.
Okay.
Nice. I'll have to check that out. Well, you have anything else for Jake, Sean?
No, man. I just to say thanks. I know you definitely find them and to share some of those tips and stuff. I'm sure there will be people out there, catching their PVs and stuff off that information. So thanks so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And if you have anybody to shout out, Jake, before we get you out of here, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a few people to shout out here. So I've been working with a company called Chum Glides. They make some amazing glide baits. They work really well in current. They catch big fish on this river. I'm sure you've seen. I've caught some muskie with this one here.
Yeah.
Go give
Just
that
some of your pictures.
They make some really, really good glide baits. They cost a lot. They're worth every penny, though.
What was the name again?
Chum Glides.
Chum Glides.
Yep. Another guy I want to shout out. I've talked about him already 5 times on this podcast. Brandon Sand. He's one of my best friends, and he's a guide on this river. He has a company called River Redemption LLC. He has a few openings this spring, so if anyone's looking to get out spring or anytime, he will put you on a lot of fish, just like every other guide on this river can. So what separates Brandon from all the other guides is he's going to show up to the boat ramp as a stranger, and by the time your guide trip is over at the end of the day, you'll feel like you've known him for 5 years. So he's got that kind of personality. He's a really good guy, so I highly suggest him. So check him out.
Definitely, and maybe we can reach out to him, maybe have him on and have him talk about what not ruin everything in his business, but see what he has to say too. So
yeah,
he would love that. Yeah,
cool. Well, Jake, we appreciate your time. Thanks for all the great information. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this in the future that are going to learn some stuff. I definitely take to heart the whole journal thing. The journal thing is key for and it shows that you're doing that. That's an awesome deal.
Yep.
For the people that don't know what we're talking about, just go back and watch the podcast here, and we talk about starting a journal for your fishing. So thanks again, Jake, and we'll hopefully get together one of these days, and maybe I can do some like a photo shoot with you.
Yeah, I'd love that. Let's get together and go fishing here soon.
That sounds awesome.
Let's do it. We'll let you know when we're coming up that way.
Yeah, please do. I'll be here.
All right, buddy. Thanks again, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
All right. Well, that is another amazing episode. Thanks for everybody who stuck around for all that juice. I think, the longer the show went, the better the juice got. So hopefully y'all hung out for a while and got that payoff. But anything else you want to add, Carlisle, before we close out?
I just want to tell people, the water is still cold. So just if you're going out and you're like, oh, it's 70 degrees out, just make sure you're wearing a dry suit. If the guy that I saved on last Saturday didn't have a dry suit on, I don't know what would have happened.
Yeah, that could have been
so until that water gets up to 65, 70 degrees, I would say you should have some kind of dry suit on.
Well, the rule is the rule that I always heard was 120. If the water temperature and the air temperature don't add up to 120, you should have some kind of thermal protection on, whether that's a wetsuit, dry suit. So always remember 120 is the rule of 120 is what they call it. So
yeah, just safety first, guys. I don't want to see anybody, especially any of my friends, go out and get hurt or lose their lives. So other than that, I just want to thank everybody that was on here tonight. We had a great show with Jake. Gave out a lot of juice, and I am excited to get out on the river.
Same here. All right. Well, we will catch you all in 2 weeks, and thanks again for tuning in. And tune in next time for another great show.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget, for future shows, like, follow, share, and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you check out our individual channels and accounts too. Want to be a guest on one of our shows and talk of adventures, gear, or products? Contact us. Thank you for watching The Noob Show with Matt Gibson, Chasing the Tide with Dustin Nichols, The Rusty Hook with John Rapp, The River Run with Adam Fraser Pross, May Contain Fishing with Daniel Woodcock, Chasing the 20s with Carlisle Esterly and Sean Lavery, Friday Night Bites with Brian Schiller. Thanks for tuning into the Paddle and Fin Network. Subscribe and always wear your PFD.